Who, without giving away too much, just maybe one or two, who made the lasting impression on you as CEOs?
There were so many from different dimensions. I mean, you know, one person I would say is I've talked about Paul Keating before. He wasn't, I mean, he was the treasurer. He was sort of the ultimate, that guy, even though we weren't actually talking about the project, he changed my important mindset, as I said, about Asia, long-term thinking, public sector. The other one was uh, Chairman Lee at Samsung. I was involved. We were doing a turnaround work after the crisis in 1997. He was amazing. He didn't speak English, and I probably met him 4 times. And I won't bore, but he was one who his view. Like I have to just tell you a couple of things about him. So we're doing this work after the financial crisis. Samsung didn't have a CFO, so all of a sudden interest rates went from like 8% to 22%. They didn't their current they were borrowing money in US dollars unhedged. So all of a sudden the yuan depreciated. So this company, which we all know of now, was close to the wall. So we had a project called literally the project was Project Won, WON, like cent. Like we got to find every single one to keep this place. So we were like literally sell the goddamn furniture if we need. We like it was. So we're doing this work. He and I would report to him, this is how we're doing it. And one day I came into the Samsung headquarters and there was this graphic on all over the place, and it had like a arrows going up, like a lightning bolt going up, and it in Korean, and it basically it said beat Sony. That and remember Sony, they were the Apple of today, right? That was, and this is Samsung. We're nearly, we're at the wall, and he's got these signs out there going beat Sony. And I literally walked in, that's about Truth Power, and I said, Chairman Lee, I said, what? I literally said, what the hell are these signs? And he looked at me and he translation, and he says, what are you talking about? I said, what are you doing putting a sign like beat Sony? And we're in the basement. We're not. And then he literally came over to me and I remember he tapped my hand and then he spoke. And when it basic translation came back, he goes, Dom, that's why I never asked you for advice. And I said, what are you? And he goes, listen, if you think you're going to motivate people by telling them we're going to save every one, you motivate people by going, if we get through this, if we get through this crisis, we can beat any company on earth. That's the message I'm giving. So that was a kind of a mindset shift too, right? About ambition and how you mobilize people. And the other thing he said to me, because we were involved in when they moved from Samsung products were low end products at that time, right? A lot of people, they would be in Walmart, and his view was, we're going to change. Samsung's going to become a high end brand and all of this stuff. And I remember having one of these conversations with him again, saying it's very difficult to do this. It's really difficult. It takes a long time. I just want you to know the and I went on and on like this. And he did this. He said, do you know our history? And I said, pretty well. He goes, I don't think you do. Do you know what our first business was? I said, no. He goes, you don't know our history. It was yeast. We made yeast. So I think we know how to transform ourselves, boy. And then it was kind of, but that guy, I loved him because he was elite. He was you know, an amazing person in terms of how he drove things. Larry Fink, even though I didn't work direct, like I was more in the managing director role at that time, but just he was part of this group on long-term capitalism that we had, of how to think, get the capital markets to work that way. His talent views, his energy, and how he focused on things, his courage uh, to drive things. Anyhow, those are just some people. I'm probably. Then there were the people like John Teets, Dial Corporation. No university background. He told me. I remember he said, I had to stop school at grade 8 because my parents died in a fire. I had to take care of my siblings, so I had to work. But he's like he's always reading. He's learning. You know what I mean? That I can see him right in front of me right now. Just again, beating me around the head and doing stuff. So there's a lot of. I know I'm missing some. Andrew McKenzie is a guy I like. Again, I used to meet him when I was at McKinsey, and he was just talking about what he wanted to do and drive, how he wanted to drive things, what he was doing on diversity, right? People laughed at him. You know, I'm going to go 40, 40, 20. Like, he moved. Another guy was John Prescott. You know, it's an old, that because I did a CEO time thing, and I thought I was being fired from the firm. And he, you know, I learned what a CEO was like because I was mainly working with the secretary. It was not, but I was literally looking at what it was like a day to day for a CEO. That was an unbelievable experience. Jamie Dimon, you know, I remember him telling me that if you, we were talking about things, by the way, a couple of things, I'll do it again, they're learnings for me. He said, if you think you or your firm can out analyze me, go home. And he goes, and he looked at me and I was like, and he goes, on Saturdays, I read mortgage tables for fun. I was like, okay, I've got it. And then he said, second point, and these are from many different meetings and so forth, but he said, you guys, you like to, you think that you make decisions, you like to make decisions with 90% confidence. Facts. I get it. I like the fact that you analyze stuff, but in this world that's moving faster and is more volatile, sometimes we have to make decisions with 60% or sometimes 40%. And then if you're wrong, you just change. And he said, and he'd hired a guy from McKinsey in strategy who was a superstar. I was really upset that he'd left. And he used to tease me. He said, so this guy would come in to their executive committee and say, you know, look, we've done some work and our hypothesis is we should go this way. And Jim and I would, what do you mean by your hypothesis? He goes, well, it's, you know, we have to do more work to prove it up, but that's what we think it is. And Jim and says, how about this? We actually think that's the right thing to do, so we're going to do it. And this guy freaked out and said, you can't, that's malpractice. You can't do that because we haven't got the analysis done. And he said, watch me, we're going to do it. And he said it drove and they did it, right? And you know, so it's this, it's learning about leadership or management from different people.